It didn't even resist. It simply turned off the lights and walked out the back door. If you are watching the C-SPAN feed from the House of Representatives right now, you are not seeing a debate. You are not seeing a vote. What you are seeing is an empty chamber, a discarded gavel, and institutional chaos unfolding in real time. At exactly 10:42 a.m. this morning, Saturday, January 31st, 2026, Speaker of the House Mike Johnson did the unthinkable. He didn't call the House to order. He didn't allow a vote. He didn't even attempt to manage the crisis. He shut the House down. Why? Because for the first time in the Trump presidency, the math stopped working. A mutiny had formed inside the Republican caucus, not from radicals, but from survivalists. Moderate Republicans terrified by collapsing Florida polls, the global boycott, the Greenland exposure, and the Minneapolis killing had quietly joined Democrats to force a resolution of inquiry. That resolution would have compelled the release of unredacted Greenland emails and full DHS logs tied to the killing of nurse Sarah Jenkins. Johnson knew exactly what that meant. If the resolution passed, the cover-up would end. If the cover-up ended, impeachment would begin. So instead of letting the People's House function, Mike Johnson pulled the plug. In this emergency deep dive, we are going to take you inside the room where the deal collapsed. We are going to name the Republicans who broke ranks. We are going to explain the obscure parliamentary maneuver Johnson used to freeze Congress itself. And we are going to show you why this act of desperation may destroy the GOP majority for a generation. The Speaker has left the building, but the crisis is just beginning. To understand why Mike Johnson ran, you have to understand who was chasing him. And it wasn't just Democrats. It was what insiders are now calling the Survival Caucus. These are roughly 20 Republicans who represent districts Joe Biden won in 2020, or districts that have swung sharply left in the 2026 tracking polls. Suburban New York, coastal California, the Midwest swing belt. Members who can read numbers and know when a political career is about to end. For the past week, they have been watching their re-election prospects collapse in real time. They watched the Japan bond crash wipe out retirement accounts back home. They watched the Greenland scheme scare donors and corporate backers. They watched the killing of nurse Sarah Jenkins radicalize suburban voters who normally avoid protests. By Thursday night, panic set in. According to multiple sources who spoke to The Hill, these Republicans went to Mike Johnson behind closed doors for an emergency meeting. The exchange was not polite. It was not theoretical. Representative Mike Lawler of New York reportedly slammed his hand on the Speaker's desk and said, "We are being slaughtered. The president is a liability. If you don't let us vote on the inquiry, we lose the House. Period." Johnson didn't negotiate. Acting on direct pressure from the White House, he refused. He quoted scripture. He told them to hold the line. He insisted the Greenland story and the Minneapolis killing were deep state propaganda designed to fracture the party. But then something changed everything. The J.D. Vance leak. When audio surfaced of the vice president privately calling the administration's strategy a suicide pact, the dam broke. The Survival Caucus realized something crucial. If even the vice president was preparing an exit ramp, they were being left behind as human shields. So they made a move that hasn't happened in modern congressional history. They cut a deal with the Democratic leadership. Together, they agreed to sign a discharge petition, a rarely used parliamentary maneuver that forces a bill to the floor, even if the Speaker refuses to schedule it. They had the numbers, 218 signatures, every Democrat, plus the 20 Republicans. A majority of the House of Representatives was prepared to compel the White House to turn over evidence. This morning, they walked onto the House floor ready to execute the maneuver. Mike Johnson saw them coming. Mike Johnson saw them coming. He saw the list in their hands. He saw the signatures. And in that moment, he understood something terrifying. He no longer controlled the House. At 10:40 a.m., Representative Tony Gonzalez of Texas, one of the leaders of the rebellion, stood up to be recognized. In his hand was the discharge petition that would force the inquiry vote. Johnson refused to look at him. The C-SPAN cameras caught it all. Johnson's eyes darted around the chamber. His face went pale. He didn't look like a speaker in control. He looked like a trapped animal calculating escape routes. He turned toward the parliamentarian. He whispered. No one could hear what was said, but everyone could see what came next. Mike Johnson lifted the gavel and slammed it down with a force that echoed through the microphones. The chair declares the House in recess, subject to the call of the chair, due to a breakdown in decorum. There was no breakdown in decorum. The room was silent. No shouting, no disorder, no threat. Johnson manufactured a crisis to justify shutting down the People's House. As he walked off the dais, the chamber erupted, and not the way the White House expected. Democratic Whip Catherine Clark shouted, "You are obstructing justice." But it was Republicans who were the loudest. Representative Thomas Massie of Kentucky, a libertarian who despises executive overreach, was heard yelling, "You can't suspend the Constitution because you're scared of a vote, Mike. Come back here." By adjourning subject to the call of the chair, Johnson did something extraordinary. He didn't just end the session for the day, he sent everyone home indefinitely. The House cannot meet, it cannot vote, it cannot issue subpoenas, not until Mike Johnson decides to return. He took the keys to Congress and put them in his pocket. Why would a speaker do this? Why would he torch his own speakership to protect one man? Because minutes before the gavel fell, Mike Johnson's phone rang. That phone call came at 10:30 a.m., just 10 minutes before Mike Johnson shut down the House. According to a staffer who overheard the call and later spoke to Axios, the caller was Donald Trump himself. And it wasn't a discussion. It was an ultimatum. "If you let that vote happen, I will destroy you," Trump reportedly said. "I will tweet that you are a weak Reno. I will primary you in Louisiana. I will ruin your life. Shut it down. Use the rule. Do it now." This is the moment Mike Johnson chose. And to understand why he chose Trump over the House, you have to understand who Mike Johnson is. He is a true believer. He believes his speakership is divinely ordained. But he also knows a simpler truth. His power does not come from the Constitution. It comes from Trump's base. The moment Trump turns on him, he's finished. So Johnson chose the king over the kingdom. But here's the fatal mistake in that strategy. By shutting down the House, Johnson didn't bury the story. He detonated it. If he had let the vote fail, or allowed the inquiry to drag out quietly, it might have been another dull procedural headline. Instead, the image burned into the public mind is this: the speaker fleeing the chamber to protect the president. It looks like fear, it looks like guilt, it looks like a confession. And then something surreal happened. The House was technically in recess. The cameras were supposed to go dark. They didn't. In a rare act of defiance, C-SPAN kept the cameras rolling, arguing that the public interest outweighed House rules. And what America saw next looked like a government in exile operating inside its own capital. Democrats, joined by the rebel Republicans, stayed on the floor. Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries stood in the well of the House without a microphone, shouting toward the press gallery. He began reading the Greenland emails into the public record, emails where Trump's advisors joked about selling ice to the Eskimos. Then he read from the DHS logs tied to the killing of Sarah Jenkins. Because the House was not technically in session, he could not be ruled out of order. He had absolute freedom of speech. CNN carried it live. MSNBC carried it live. Even Fox News aired portions. The visual was devastating. An empty speaker's chair, a unified opposition reading evidence of wrongdoing, a president hiding behind procedure. Representative Jamie Raskin took the floor moments later and said, "The speaker has fled. The president is hiding. The vice president is plotting. We are the only functioning branch of government left. If the speaker won't call us back, we will call ourselves back." That's when constitutional scholars began openly panicking. Because Article 1, Section 5 of the Constitution is clear. Neither chamber of Congress can adjourn for more than 3 days without the consent of the other. The Senate is still in session. If Mike Johnson keeps the House closed past Tuesday, he is violating the Constitution. And that sets the stage for a legal war the Speaker may not survive. Here's where this stops being a political stunt and becomes a constitutional collision. If Mike Johnson keeps the House shuttered past Tuesday, the rebellion has options, and none of them are small. The Senate, which is still in session, can pass a resolution demanding the House return, or the Rebel 20 can join Democrats to force a motion to vacate the chair the moment the House reconvenes. Johnson knows this. That's why he cannot come back. As long as the House stays dark, he stays Speaker. The moment the lights come back on, his gavel is gone. This is no longer governance. It's a siege, carried out not with protest signs or barricades, but with parliamentary procedure. And the consequences are already spilling beyond Capitol Hill. Markets are reacting in real time. Investors don't care about ideology, they care about paralysis. With the House shut down, no budget bills can pass, no debt ceiling adjustments can move. We are weeks from a funding deadline, and now the world is staring at a government that literally cannot function. The Dow is sliding again. Treasury yields are spiking. Global markets are pricing in something they haven't had to consider before, a United States with no legislative branch. Foreign governments are watching closely. China announced live fire exercises near Taiwan within hours of the House shutdown. They see distraction. They see weakness. Johnson's attempt to save Trump has frozen America's ability to respond to global threats, and the fracture inside the Republican Party is now fully visible. Republican governors, the ones who still have to balance budgets and keep streets calm, are breaking ranks. Statements from Georgia and Virginia made it clear this shutdown is untenable. Obstruction is not leadership. The governors know that if the national GOP becomes synonymous with chaos, they go down with it. The party is splitting into two camps: federal MAGA loyalists clinging to Trump and state-level realists trying to survive the fallout. And then there's the money. Major donors are pulling back. The same donors who met quietly with J.D. Vance in Ohio are now furious. They didn't fund a majority so Congress could disappear. Without money, campaigns die. Without campaigns, the majority collapses. Mike Johnson tried to perform a magic trick, make the House disappear so the truth wouldn't come out. Instead, he showed the country exactly how fragile the system is. The defining image of this moment isn't a speech or a vote. It's an empty speaker's chair, a silent chamber, a government frozen because one man was too afraid to face the truth. Johnson believes he saved the president. In reality, he may have destroyed his own party. Because when you shut down the House to hide evidence of wrongdoing, you're no longer a speaker, you're an accomplice. We will continue monitoring the shadow session. Hakeem Jeffries has promised new disclosures. There are rumors of a whistleblower stepping forward, and there is growing chatter about a motion to vacate the chair the moment the House doors reopen. The House may be closed. Pause. But the consequences are wide open. See you in the next video.